maniac!
Oops, lost me balance.
If there's one characteristic that defines Britain above any other, it's our sense of humour. Or so we like to tell ourselves. But it certainly defined British cinema. From Carry On Cleo...
Infamy! Infamy! They've all got it in for me!
...to Calendar Girls.
With respect, I didn't hear him use the phrase, whip your brass off.
Shaun the Sheep... to Shaun of the Dead.
And hold it there.
And just get her up me!
We can't resist challenging convention...
Achtung! Guten Tag. Silence!
Sorry. I shouldn't like to be on the receiving end of that lot.
...and skewering pomposity, while casually tossing off a double entendre.
You sit here, Mr. Coote.
Oh, yes.
And I shoot a clean napkin in your ring for you.
Oh.
In Secrets of Cinema, I explore the conventions which underwrite the movies we love the most and examine the techniques filmmakers use to keep us coming back for more. Tonight, I'll show you why making fools of ourselves
Now shut up, all of you.
makes for seriously good cinema.
This is Trotwood Trotterfield.
Trotwood Copperfield. Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Trot.
Pleasure is all mine.
What do you have in your hand?
It's nothing.
Oh, just a small piece of wall, but all is well. Follow me.
One of my favourite releases of the last few years is The Personal History of David Copperfield.
Janet! Donkeys! Donkeys!
Based on Charles Dickens' 19th century novel and benefiting from 21st century colourblind casting,
Off my lawn!
it's a glorious showcase for smart British comedy from the madcap
Donkey-free zone! Move it!
to the mordant.
Very ill.
Very ill?
Dangerously ill.
She's dead.
Brilliantly reimagining Dickens' timeless source, the film conjures a vibrant portrait of Britain.
Well, I'm not down there. Creditors make that road impossible. 2 tailors and a most unreasonable muffin man.
With Dev Patel leading an ensemble cast who never miss a beat.
What are you doing?
Medicine. Reviving you.
This is salad dressing.
Is it? Thought it was Armagnac.
David Copperfield draws on a huge reservoir of British comedy talent, one that's been more than a century in the making. In fact, the British comic sensibility was a formative element of modern cinema. Charlie Chaplin, a British comedian but an international movie star, was once the defining image of cinema as a whole and the most instantly recognisable human being in the world. Coming out of the British music hall tradition, Chaplin became a pioneer of the moving image in America, both in front of and behind the camera, and helped shape screen comedy for decades. Although Chaplin made the transition to sound, he didn't want audiences to hear his little tramp speak, and largely kept to that, which meant that many of his international fans didn't know their favourite screen figure had an English accent. Chaplin was British-born, British-trained, and an utterly British personality, but his fame and achievements can be laid on Hollywood. Other British comics, Peter Sellers, Stan Laurel, Elton-born Bob Hope, have become international figures. But just as many greats have stayed home, exploring uniquely British subject matter. So, what makes a great comic actor?
Matron, what is it? What do you want?
Let's start with the rich array of British character actors.
Oh, I'm feeling wonderful. I just thought we might have a little drink.
Those who are inherently funny thanks to their innate mannerisms, how they walk, talk, the magical way their facial expressions register on screen.
I wonder if you'd look after Georgie. She gets so nervous in committee. Take that revolting animal away from me.
They may be traditional actors like Margaret Rutherford, or professional comedians like Sanjeev Bhaskar. Either way, these performers seem to embody particular British attitudes and character types. They have funny bones. Then there are those who are funny thanks to clever writing and their own extraordinary technical skill.
Look, something very urgent has come up, and I want you to place an emergency person-to-person call with President Merkin Muffley in the Pentagon, Washington, D.C.
Like Peter Sellers and his tour de force in Dr. Strangelove, playing 3 very different characters.
Mr. President, I would not rule out the chance to preserve a nucleus of human specimens. It would be quite easy. At the bottom of some of our deeper mine shafts.
Sellers was following in the footsteps of his hero Alec Guinness,
There was Admiral Lord Horatio Gascoigne.
who played no less than 8 different characters in Kind Hearts and Coronets.
There was Lady Agatha Gascoigne.
Guinness and Sellers took pride in being unrecognisable from performance to performance. For a more recent equivalent, look at this standout turn in the hit British comedy Kinky Boots from Chiwetel Ejiofor, another chameleon-like actor who transforms himself from role to role.
In fact, some might say that attempts of certain people to make a man out of me as a child is exactly the reason that I now wear a frock. If, therefore, I get the feeling somebody didn't want me to come to Northampton... No. Also, I can tell from years of experience when I'm being smuggled in through a rear door.
The fact is, being funny clever isn't a lesser form than funny bones, and all great comics or comic actors have to combine the two strands to some extent.
Hey, Toto. Toto.
It's worth noting that success in one medium doesn't guarantee success in another. Many stars of radio or TV comedy have tried to export their personas to the cinema with mixed results.
Finished. Marvellous.
Dudley Moore may have become a Hollywood star, but his celebrated TV partnership with Peter Cook produced just one notable movie, their self-scripted 1967 hit Bedazzled. Cook's role as the devil was one of his few big-screen successes.
You're not wearing nylon underwear, are you?
Why?
It disintegrates at high speeds. Prepare yourself. The magic words, LBJ.
Yeah, my ice lolly's melted. You really must be the devil.
Incarnate. How do you do?
Oh, how do you do?
By contrast, the Monty Python team enjoyed a string of box office hits. Perhaps because their surreal visions worked on a more cinematic scale.
By what name are you known?
There are some who call me... Tim?
In fact, several of today's most successful British comedy feature film directors honed their skills on television, including Edgar Wright, Paul King, Mandy Fletcher, who's directed Ab Fab on both the small and big screens.
Oh, Eddie, you're my most favourite person in the whole world. You have to do my PR. Please, you have to.
And Phyllida Lloyd, who brought her TV and theatre experience to Mamma Mia, which in 2008 overtook Titanic to become the highest-grossing film in UK box office history. But beyond the talent that underpins British comedy cinema, there are particular themes that we return to again and again, situations and characters that reveal our national preoccupations and obsessions. And at the heart of all of this is a recurrent figure who's both all-important and entirely unimportant. The Tramp may have been an American production, but in it, Charlie Chaplin established the basic archetype of British comedy, the little man. The indefatigable spirit who keeps struggling as everything stacks up against him. Whether it's bullies, authority figures, his own ineptitude, or simply malign fate itself. Even if they win out in the end, this character type is a perennial underdog. And the British have embraced such creatures with open arms, creating some of the biggest box office stars in this country's history.
Gonna ride it, George? What do you think it's gonna do, milk it?
George Formby's first big hit was 1935's No Limit.
That streamline, that is.
Says thee.
Why? Don't you believe me?
Aye, if you swear to it. Finger wet, finger dry.
Finger wet, finger dry.
He gives the little man a distinctly Lancastrian spin as a Wigan chimney sweep who dreams of victory in the Isle of Man TT. Formby may not have had Chaplin's silent-era expressiveness, but he did have a handy little instrument and a stream of suggestive lyrics.
My ribs begin to shake about, there's all my spare parts sticking out, so come along and see me riding in the TT race.
Formby also had a gift for physical comedy.
Further down than I thought it was.
And he followed in the footsteps of Harold Lloyd and Buster Keaton by performing some of his own stunts, including motorcycle shots for No Limit's climactic race. It's said that Chaplin's own favourite clown was Norman Wisdom, another master of physical comedy.
Oh, no man.
And the biggest star in British cinema from the mid-50s to the early 60s. Wisdom is at his most Chaplin-esque in a pathos-filled early hit, One Good Turn.
1, 2, 3.
As an orphanage worker trying to raise money for a little boy's present, Wisdom channels Chaplin's masterpiece City Lights when his well-meaning man-child gets caught in a series of escalating misadventures. Occasionally, little men are actually little women, although this is an area in which big-screen British comedy still has a lot of catching up to do. One of the best examples is The Knack. Rita Tushingham is newly arrived in swinging London, caught in a series of silent and often surreal comic encounters.
Nice to meet you.
Right, the car's just here.
They're not infected. What do you like? They're clean. I just washed them specially. Honest. Please sit then.
More recently, in Mike Leigh's Happy-Go-Lucky, Sally Hawkins is perfectly cast as Poppy, whose almost pathological cheerfulness is tested by Eddie Marsan's driving instructor.
Now, have you ever had a driving lesson before?
Yeah. No, wasn't really a lesson. It was in the Cadillac in Miami. Bunny hopped down the beach. I was a bit pissed. It was hilarious.
Other incarnations of the little man include a bear.
Paddington, what is going on in there? Nothing. I'm just having a spot of bother with the facilities.
And even a messiah.
Don't pass judgment on other people, or you might get judged yourself. What?
Depending on who you ask.
Now you listen here. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
This brings us to an interesting variation, the little man who thinks he's a big man. British comedy has a long tradition of pompous and petty authority figures, and occasionally they're given top billing. Probably the best known is the commander of the Warmington-on-Sea Home Guard, who enjoyed their first big-screen outing in 1971.
It's enough of that.
Who do you think you are?
We're the local defence volunteers, and I'm their appointed commander, Captain Mannering. And I must ask you to keep your hands off my privates.
Captain Mannering was partly inspired by Will Hayes' titular character in the 1937 comedy Oh, Mr. Porter, an officious railway worker who's packed off to run the remote Northern Irish station of Buggles Kelly.
Funny, how did that happen? Do you know where you sent those flats? Yes, down there. You've done it. Well, we've got the carriage anyway. Yes, but if you want
You can see an even closer relative of Mannering in Alexander McKendrick's Whiskey Galore. Basil Radford's Captain Waggett runs the Home Guard on the Scottish island of Toddy.
It's not good enough, you know. Every time they move that roadblock, it's longer than the last. How do you account for that?
Well, I wouldn't say they were doing too badly, sir. It's pretty heavy going, you know.
All right, Sergeant, we'll see it again.
Right, once again, men, move.
Like Porter, he's a bossy Englishman far from England and out of his depth.
It's very discouraging.
Yes, sir. Just one point it did strike me, sir.
What's that?
Well, sir, if this is the only road round the island, all the Jerry would need to do in theory would be to turn around and come here the other way.
Yes. I was wondering when you were going to think of that. You should have pointed that out to me before, Mr. Campbell.
You'll find little men with big egos in all walks of life. Acting.
Bastard asked me to understudy Constantine in The Seagull. I'm not going to understudy anybody, especially that little pimp.
Broadcasting.
but I was having a fascinating conversation with the proud father of Norfolk's most sun-tanned child. Just passed his details on to the social services. The time is 11:59 and 55 seconds.
Midday?
Well, no. Well, yeah, it is now.
These characters constantly struggle against a world that isn't quite as convinced of their talent as they are. But for sheer self-delusion, it's hard to beat Tony Hancock in The Rebel. A frustrated office drone, Hancock is working on a secret masterpiece in his London boarding house.
Oh, you temptress. Oh, you voluptuous Jezebel. My Aphrodite. What carnal desires did you stir in the breasts of helpless men?
Devoid of talent but benefiting from a series of misunderstandings, Hancock becomes the toast of the Paris art scene.
Smile, please. This way, monsieur, please. Down here, monsieur.
According to screenwriters Ray Galton and Alan Simpson, no less than Lucian Freud said The Rebel was the best film about modern art ever made. Perhaps because it doesn't just poke fun at the pretensions of Hancock's character, but at the entire art establishment. The little man is often a means to take on more powerful targets.
So where should we sit, darling?
Why don't I go at the head here, and Francis,
I'll
you
pop
go
here.
there.
In Gurinder Chadha's Blinded by the Light, adapted from the memoir by Sarfraz Manzoor, working-class Muslim Javed is invited to meet his girlfriend's parents. What could possibly go wrong?
Eliza's very picky on who she brings home.
Yes, she picks the boys she thinks we're going to find the most shocking. Politics. It's very personal for our Eliza, isn't it, Princess?
The only thing shocking, Dad, is your bigotry towards anybody who isn't white, middle-class and true blue.
You'll have to forgive Eliza. Sometimes I'm not sure how we raised such a firebrand.
Blinded by the Light adds the complications of race and religion to class, the big subject of British comedy that differentiates it from the class-less vision of Hollywood.
With Eliza, it's the more provocative, the better.
But what's provocative about Javed?
Time and again, comedy films challenge the manners, conventions and hierarchies of British society, often through conflict between the classes, but sometimes from within them.
Cake and tea. Didn't you hear? She said she'd closed. What do you want in here? Cake. What's it got to do with you?
Withnell may look dishevelled, but he's also probably the poshest person in this stuffy Penrith tea room, which makes his disruptive drunkenness all the more delicious.
If you don't leave, we'll call the police. Balls. We want the finest wines available to humanity. We want them here, and we want them now. Miss Blenner has it. Telephone the police.
But it's easier to root for an underdog if they weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. You can see why George Formby would appeal to a largely working-class 1930s audience as a chimney sweep who wins the heart of middle-class Florence Desmond.
I hope we're going to have some nice weather. I've come all the way from London.
I can tell that with the daft way you speak.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I come from Flagdyke.
Hey, lad, I could tell that with the daft way you look.
That's one to you, isn't it? Ow!
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did that prick you?
It's all right. It didn't go so very deep.
But British comedies made in the years following World War II suggest the old social certainties are shifting. I'm All Right, Jack captures a struggling Britain trying to find its way in the Suez-era industrial world.
Hey, what's your game?
Frightfully sorry.
Inverting the upwardly mobile George Formby model, Ian Carmichael is the upper-class innocent who becomes a forklift driver. With Peter Sellers as a union shop steward, the scene is set for some very direct class confrontation.
What do you think you're doing? Frightfully sorry. I'm afraid I haven't quite got this thing buttoned up yet. What's your name? Windrush. Oh, me and my colleagues are the Works Committee. How do you do? Would you mind producing your union card? I'm afraid I can't.
I'm All Right, Jack takes swipes at bosses and workers while still essentially siding with the former. Compare its cynically satirical 1959 take with the rather more positive, even nostalgic portrayal of unions in the 2010 real-life comedy drama Made in Dagenham.
Everybody out.
Set during the 1968 Ford machinist strike, but made more than 40 years later, Made in Dagenham dramatises a crucial step in the campaign for equal wages for women.
Finish at 4! Give us a call up, eh?
This is unbelievable. I never thought we'd get this backing.
It's got an inspiring feel-good factor, more typical of recent comedies than those made in the period it depicts.
Hold on, go! We're not entirely on fold, look.
I know the feeling.
Don't look, boys.
You might not describe Ken Loach as a feel-good director, but like his contemporary Mike Leigh, Loach knows how to use humour to make a serious point.
Come where are you supposed to go for a craft? Put bicycle clips on and shit yourself. Listen, Larry, you're bloody stupid. You know where to go. Up the floor, get onto the scaffold and into the show flat. We're always bloody using it.
Actual former builder Ricky Tomlinson starred in Loach's 1991 Riff Raff, which follows low-paid construction workers building luxury flats that they could never dream of affording. Loach shows his flair for comic timing in a perfect set piece that's also a droll comment on the London property market.
Another bathroom here, which I think you'll find very impressive.
Who are you? Checking the plumbing.
Get out of there!
Everything seems to be working.
Loach's bathroom moment unexpectedly echoes a scene in A Fish Called Wanda, a film from a completely different milieu that nonetheless shares a key trait of British comedy.
Talk. Lick. Cool. Lick.
Being caught with your pants down is the stuff of British nightmares, whatever your wealth or class. So it's interesting that two of the most popular British comedies from the last 25 years see very different sets of characters shedding social convention by shedding their clothes.
Are we right?
Right for what?
Taking his kit off. Well, you were turning me into a fancy dancer. Listen, ladies, we are strippers, aren't we?
What, here, now? In this house? This is a good area, this is.
Of course, The Full Monty isn't just about working-class men losing their inhibitions, but about trying to find dignity and purpose in post-industrial Sheffield.
Right. No, Ruth, I've got to go anyway.
Then there are the middle-class women of Naples, spurred on by tragedy to bare their flesh for charity.
Oh, no, not yet. Wait. We've just taken one of the table. We'll sell a lot of calendars. Is that one? Yeah, but it's very sensitive.
Right. Can anyone see my nipples?
The central joke in both Calendar Girls and The Full Monty is that, for all the undressing, the furthest thing from the characters' minds is a subject around which British comedy has danced with embarrassment for decades.
Window cleaning to earn an honest bob. For a nosy Parker, it's an interesting job.
It's often been noted that the defining factor of most British sex comedies is that they're neither sexy nor funny.
Honeymooning couples too, you should see them bill and coo. You'd be surprised at things they do when I'm cleaning windows.
Yet, since the days of George Formby, British cinema has been coyly making fnar jokes about a subject we cannot bear to face head-on. Sex only really became an acknowledged theme in British comedy films when social attitudes relaxed in the 60s. Films like The Knack, from American émigré director Richard Lester, found the little man asking more openly what had previously remained unsaid.
Would you show me?
You mean how I get women?
Yes. Yes, I mean that.
Ah, but you haven't even started, Colin. The right food, for example.
the right food doesn't
Food
matter.
is of the utmost importance. Food is of the essence. One's body needs protein and energy-giving substance.
Yes, but look...
I find that with my, perhaps, unusual sexual demands, my body requires at least twice the normal daily intake of protein.
Huh? Well, I won't need that much, will I? Protein.
No.
Thank you, nurse. Sorry, sister.
Released at the height of the swinging 60s, Carry On Doctor upped the sex factor more than any previous entry in the series. Signalling a direction the films would increasingly follow, Barbara Windsor is a seaside postcard caricature come to life.
Hi. Oh, what a lovely looking pair.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
I am a well-known and practicing doctor. In the artistic and beautiful picture which now follows, you will see naked men and women engaged in the various arts of sexual love.
Later, Carry On at Your Convenience parodied the educational sex films that became voguish in the late 60s and early 70s.
Joy and pleasure.
God, you don't miss a trick, do you?
While the Carry On films relied largely upon suggestion and innuendo, they paved the way for a subgenre of highly profitable films mixing broad comedy with softcore nudity that bizarrely came to embody the cultural landscape of 70s Britain. And the genre's defining hit was the spiritual descendant of George Formby's most famous song.
Favourite gear is a white nylon T-shirt, because when you wet it, you can press it up against the window.
Confessions of a Window Cleaner was less of a departure from British comedy tradition than you might think.
Carol! What?
It was helmed by veteran director Val Guest, whose early credits include co-writing Oh, Mr. Porter.
Just finishing the carpet. Be right with you.
Robin Asquith's encounters often play out like a classic bedroom farce.
Hello. They let me off early. Oh.
Morning.
Morning.
Oh, sit then. And don't worry about the payment. We'll send an account.
Thank you.
Extraordinary way to clean windows.
Oh, he'll come back and do the rest later.
No, I mean he was cleaning them with a pair of knickers.
Knickers?
There's even an appearance by John the Measurer.
I take it you're conversant with the tar test.
It's like he's there to reassure the audience that they haven't strayed too far from the mainstream. A huge box office hit in 1974, Confessions of a Window Cleaner triggered a short-lived British sex comedy boom. It produced such oddities as Eskimo Nell, a satire on the sex film industry featuring Roy Kinnear and a pre-James Herriot Christopher Timothy.
You've got to give the public what it wants. I did a film a few years ago. It was called Midnight Forever.
Midnight Forever. That wasn't the Philippe Marceau picture about the Spanish Civil War, was it?
No, this was about lesbianism in a convent. Didn't take a cent.
Directed by Martin Campbell, later of GoldenEye and Casino Royale fame, Eskimo Nell poked fun at clean-up campaigners like Mary Whitehouse and Lord Longford. The characters dupe Lady Longhorn into funding their sex film by pretending it's a wholesome family drama.
This is Harris Tweedle. He's writing the script.
I've heard so much about it from Dennis already. It does sound exciting. And who's interested in birds, then?
That's Harris. He's into birds.
Such a charming hobby. My late husband was a keen ornithologist. He specialised in tits.
Perhaps the most unexpected and gritty British outing was 1987's Rita, Sue and Bob 2. This still controversial black comedy was adapted by screenwriter Andrea Dunbar from her own stage plays.
I'll give you two a ride round for half an hour. Will your mum say out?
No.
A story about the relationship between two teenage girls and a married man would be queasy in pretty much anyone else's hands, but Dunbar, who died at only 29, had a truly authentic voice.
Can either of you two put a Durex on?
What's a Durex? I think he means a rubber Johnny.
That's right.
Well, what you calling rubber Johnny's Durex for?
Durex is proper name for them.
Oh, I didn't know. Never had any use for 'em myself.
Can you put one on?
I wouldn't know what to do with one.
Dunbar had been a teenage mother herself and lived on an estate in Bradford where much of the film was shot.
Bob's really nice, isn't he? He's the sort of fella I could live with.
As long as he weren't doing with me what he's doing with his wife. Ooh, you can't expect hotels, can you? God, if I had a fella like him, I'd expect him to do it. You mean to tell me you wouldn't be bothered if he was going with all lasses he could get? Well, what you don't know, don't tell you. Does it?
Rita Sue and Bob Two's mix of sex, humour and tough social realism remains rare in modern British cinema. But its frank attitude towards female sexuality paved the way for the more glossy rom-coms that would become a highly exportable staple of the British film industry.
The whole truth. Equally important, we'll find nice, sensible boyfriend to go out with and not continue to form romantic attachments to any of the following: alcoholics, workaholics, commitment phobics, peeping toms, megalomaniacs, emotional fuckwits, or perverts. And
Bridget Jones's Diary, directed by Sharon Maguire from Helen Fielding's celebrated book, talks directly and entertainingly about sex without actually showing it.
Yes, Bridget?
That thing you just did is actually illegal in several countries.
Well, that is, of course, the major reason I'm so thrilled to be living in Britain today.
Yes, I can't understand why the Prime Minister doesn't mention it more in his speeches.
You should write to him about it.
I intend to.
It's that frisson of the illicit, rather than the sex itself, that seems to count most. And when it comes to illicit activities, some comedy films take a much more illegal turn.
Most men who long to be rich know inwardly that they will never achieve their ambition. But I was in the unique position of having a fortune literally within my grasp. For it was my job to supervise the deliveries of bullion from the gold refinery to the bank.
In The Lavender Hill Mob, Alec Guinness is a little man who sets out to make it big by robbing the bank that employs him. Of course, as we know from our Secrets of Cinema on heist movies, the genre is full of ironies and reversals, and The Lavender Hill Mob makes much of their comic potential. After the gold is melted down and smuggled to France disguised as Eiffel Tower paperweights, there's a spectacular chase when they are mistakenly sold. Director Charles Crichton seems to anticipate Hitchcock's Vertigo as Guinness and his accomplice Stanley Holloway begin their descent. But the pursuit quickly turns into a giddy experience that feels more like a game than a criminal enterprise. Why such a sympathetic tone? Well, like Whiskey Galore, The Lavender Hill Mob is one of a string of Ealing comedies made in the post-war years about likeable characters who take on the system. The producers knew these would resonate with British audiences stuck with austerity and rationing. But 4 years later, when Guinness appeared as another criminal mastermind in another Ealing comedy, the tone was more sinister.
Mrs. Wilberforce?
Yes?
I understand you have rooms to let.
In The Lady Killers, Professor Marcus turns a little old lady's house into his gang's hideout by pretending they've come to rehearse as a string quintet.
I thought perhaps before you've all become too absorbed, you and your guests might like a cup of tea.
Oh, you shouldn't.
You know, Professor, you didn't tell me the truth about yourself and these other gentlemen. Why, you're not the least bit like amateurs. You really must be professionals.
It's a brilliant comic conceit, but the brutally efficient heist jars us out of our comfort zone. From now on, the twists and turns carry real menace and suspense. That's whether the gang are drawing lots to see who'll dispose of the inconvenient Mrs. Wilberforce.
Don't get excited.
Or turning on each other in a series of murderous double crosses. With its mix of extreme characters, absurdity and cold-blooded violence, The Lady Killers resembles nothing so much as a Coen Brothers film. And indeed, in 2004, the Coens unveiled their own ill-judged remake, transposing the story to the American South and in the process jettisoning the very Britishness that was the key to the original's success.
You're all going to be, in consequence, very, very incredibly rich.
Ealing had honed their gift for pitch-black humour in an earlier and equally prescient comedy from 1949.
used to get a lot of this stuff in the Crimea. One thing the Ruskies do really well.
In Kind Hearts and Coronets, Dennis Price plays Louis Mazzini, murdering his aristocratic relatives one by one to secure the inheritance he believes is rightfully his.
But what could I do to hurt them? What could I take from them? Except, perhaps, their lives.
Mazzini's calm and calculated plotting is set against the comic depiction of the Gascoigne family.
Admiral Lord Horatio, obstinate to the last, insisted on going down with his ship.
They're all played, regardless of age and gender, by Alec Guinness in one of the great turns in British cinema. Class is the big theme here, with each of the Gascoignes representing a different facet of the British establishment. And as the vengeful little man, Mazzini dispatches them with methods ranging from the ingenious to the absurd.
I shot an arrow in the air. She fell to earth in Berkeley Square.
Like Chaplin's remarkable Monsieur Verdoux a couple of years earlier, Kind Hearts and Coronets is a serial killer comedy, and the sheer variety and inventiveness of its killings gives it a particularly modern feel. Dennis Price himself later played a victim in the ingenious British horror film Theatre of Blood. The serial killer here is Vincent Price's classical actor, murdering critics using methods inspired by Shakespeare's plays. It's a reminder that modern horror has nothing on the bard's gory imagination.
Call me Jack.
Murder and comedy have continued to mix in films as diverse as the flamboyant stage-to-screen adaptation The Ruling Class, another satire on the aristocracy, and Benjamin Ross's The Young Poisoner's Handbook, based on the real-life serial murderer Graham Young.
Graham, where's that medicine? Mum's waiting.
One of the best serial killer satires of recent years draws on a surprising influence.
You heard about the man, didn't you? Oh. He slipped on the crack and went off the cliff yesterday. Did you not hear about that? No.
Did he hurt himself?
Head smashed like a pumpkin.
That's why I'd never have stone flooring. Although I do love that French farmhouse look.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it, when people don't have respect for the power of nature.
Can't find his dog.
Well, he probably committed suicide. Dogs will do that.
Co-written by its stars Alice Lowe and Steve Oram, Ben Wheatley's Sightseers follows Tina and Chris on a murderous caravan trip across northern England. Sightseers plays out like a blood-soaked version of Mike Leigh's classic 1976 TV play Nuts in May, with its deadpan humour, misfit characters, and acute consciousness of class.
What are you doing?
Mind your own business.
You're not making a fire, are you?
What's it got to do with you?
I just remind you that open fires are not allowed here.
Who said?
Did you go to a private school?
That is totally irrelevant, but yes.
Yeah, I thought so. It's the tone, it's the entitlement you got.
I'm entitled to walk in the countryside without having to encounter dog excrement.
In both cases, a holiday in rural England unleashes repressed violence in little men. But perhaps the most incendiary combination of humour and murder came in Four Lions, Chris Morris's breathtaking 2010 comedy about a group of incompetent wannabe suicide bombers.
Run! Hey, brother Fezzer! I'm with a wall vessel! Get him faster, bro! You're not so fast!
Brilliantly played by its ensemble cast, Four Lions is uniquely edgy fare, uncomfortable in all the right ways and entertaining in most of the supposedly wrong ones. The humour is often slapstick, but it's also heartbreaking. A scene in which a young father, played by Riz Ahmed, tries to explain his planned martyrdom using the language of Disney's Lion King is genuinely astonishing.
Simba would never give up.
Exactly. Exactly so. Simba kept it all a secret. And he led Pumbaa and Timon and all his friends. He led them all in a fight against Scar. And he vanquished Scar. And Simba became the new Lion King.
Yeah.
All right. Bedtime for you, soldier.
While British comedy has a natural affinity with such dark subject matter, it can also take on genres much more associated with big-budget American productions. This is The Little Man in the form of an entire film, poking fun at perhaps the biggest authority figure in all of cinema.
All right, I'll come straight to the point. Miss White, you...
Yes? Is there something I can do for you?
Carry On Cleo is one of the high points of the franchise, and part of the reason it's such an effective pastiche of a Hollywood epic is the quality of its costumes and sets. Well, many of these had actually been created for the Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton Cleopatra before the US-backed production abandoned Britain and moved to Italy, leaving the Carry On team to make merry with the spoils.
One can tell more about the quality of merchandise by examining the backside first.
Carry On Cleo takes specific shots at the Hollywood version, banking on the audience's familiarity with a production that had made headlines with its costly excesses. The irony, of course, is that in Britain, it's the comedy cash-in that's become the enduring classic, even finding its way onto a commemorative British stamp. Carry On Cleo is colourful and visually satisfying, and at 90 minutes, it's considerably less bum-numbing than the average Hollywood epic. And with its Roman-era setting, it paved the way for one of the greatest comedy stories ever told. Like its predecessor, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, Life of Brian is never less than properly cinematic. It's so beautifully shot in Tunisia by director of photography Peter Bijou, you can feel the heat and the dust.
Anybody else feel like a little giggle when I mention my friend, Dickus?
Despite essentially being a series of sketches cleverly strung together, the flawless design, cinematography and music ensure that the film never feels disjointed. There are some obvious parodies of Hollywood epics.
I'm Brian! I'm Brian! I'm Brian! I'm Brian! I'm Brian and so's my wife!
And for something completely different, there's even a just post-Star Wars space opera parody. Created by Terry Gilliam, it's a tiny film within a film. And it was a stepping stone towards Gilliam's even more visually ambitious solo work. Brazil is a nightmarish tragicomedy with Jonathan Pryce as a little man who literally escapes into his dreams. He may be a high-flying hero in his fantasies, but Sam's waking reality has more in common with Norman Wisdom. Set in a dystopian world with echoes of George Orwell's 1984, Brazil is staged on a Hollywood scale, but it was shot in England with a largely British cast. And it has a very British comic sensibility, thanks to a script co-written by Charles McEwan and Tom Stoppard.
Oh, you look different.
Well, I'm 2 years older.
And she's been to Dr. Jaffe. She doesn't like me telling people, but in fact, she's really pleased. I knew there was something different. Remember how they used to stick out? What? Oh, yes. Well, rather. Always used to wonder if they were real.
What, my ears?
Sorry?
Like Stanley Kubrick before him, Gilliam was born in America, but has largely lived and worked in Britain. Throughout Brazil, Gilliam echoes Kubrick with his stylized use of tracking shots and symmetrical widescreen compositions. Note too the very Clockwork Orange feel to Sam's predicament in this scene. Gilliam's visual sensibility also draws on his extensive background in animation. And that same discipline has given us some of the crown jewels of British comedy in the shape of Nick Park and Aardman Animation's Wallace and Gromit series. The films are packed with homages to famous movies, including some particularly delightful Hollywood pastiches.
Confounded thing. This isn't funny,
Daddy created him for good, but he's turned out evil.
One of the most cine-literate contemporary British directors is Edgar Wright. His Cornetto trilogy of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz and The World's End are among the most successful British comedies of the last 2 decades.
Want to do something useful?
Well, now what? I'll have to get more stuff.
But that's not just down to how cleverly Wright and co-screenwriter Simon Pegg play with the tropes of zombie flicks,
No, that's the second up I ever bought! No!
cop buddy movies and alien invasion films. It's because these are exhilarating pieces of genre filmmaking in their own right. And at their heart, all 3 films draw on the wellspring of British comedy, The Little Man, in the shape of Pegg's protagonists. Shaun is a 20-something slacker with a dead-end job and a moribund relationship.
OK, has anyone fired a gun before? Oh, yeah. Apart from Ed. I'm a pacifist.
Until a zombie outbreak forces him into unexpected heroism.
As Bertrand Russell once said, the only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperation. I think we can all appreciate the relevance of that now.
By contrast, London police officer Nicholas Angel is an uptight high achiever. But like Will Hay and Oh Mr. Porter, he's packed off to the back of beyond, in this case, rural Gloucestershire, where new partner Nick Frost has to loosen him up.
Have you ever seen Point Break?
No.
Amazing bit in Point Break where they jump over fences.
Is there now? 29.
Patrick Swayze's just robbed this bank. And Keanu Reeves is chasing him through people's gardens. And he goes to shoot Swayze, but he can't because he loves him so much. And he's firing his gun up in the air. And he's like, oh.
30.
Have you ever fired your gun up in the air and gone, ah?
No, I have not ever fired my gun up in the air and gone, ah.
Alongside the homegrown successes of Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, Wright and Pegg both found work in Hollywood itself before returning to make the 3rd film in the trilogy, The World's End.
Have you got any plans for dinner at all?
Tonight, we will be partaking of a liquid repast as we wend our way up the Golden Mile.
Gary King is the most tragic of Pegg's little men, a character who wishes he could be 18 forever. Gary has roped in his old school friends for an epic pub crawl in a humdrum home counties town. But note Gary's repeated cruciform gestures. This will be less a night on the lash, more a last supper. The discovery of an extraterrestrial invasion prompts some dazzling set pieces, which are both thrilling and comic.
Gary King of the Humans.
Yeah? What do you want?
The film's climax sees Gary defend humanity before a godlike alien intelligence. And it's here that The World's End gets as close as British comedy does to a universal truth.
Hey! It is our basic human right to be fuck-ups! This civilization was founded on fuck-ups, and you know what? That makes me proud. And me!
What is it they say?
To err is human. To err is human! So,
In the end, we're all little men.
I bought you breakfast.
Thank you. Your sandwich has always put me in a good mood.
Morning, Dr. Jaffrey. You haven't forgotten your keys, have you?
Keys? You won't find a more cheery portrait of contemporary Britain than the title sequence of Paddington 2.
Glorious day, Colonel.
It's a beautifully choreographed scene in which our ursine hero takes an everyday journey through a diverse West London street.
Morning, Paddington. Morning, Mr. Barnes.
Bye, Paddington.
Au revoir, mademoiselle.
Right. Test me.
What's the quickest way from Baker Street to Big Ben?
Ah, an easy one.
The fluid camera work suggests a natural ease and unity. And look at that steam train. It takes us back to an Ealing comedy made more than 60 years earlier, The Titfield Thunderbolt. The community here is very different, but just as idealised. And again, there's the fluid camera work and the glorious bonus of sunny Technicolor film stock.
Morning. Good morning.
The Titfield Thunderbolt is perhaps the most heartwarming of Ealing's comedies. The story not of a little man, but a little village that comes together to save a rural railway line threatened with closure. This scene, in which the passengers band together to get water for the stricken locomotive,
Sorry, ma'am. Engine's going up.
is a celebration of collective endeavour as stirring as any Soviet propaganda film. And it echoes the famous moment in an earlier Ealing comedy when the islanders in Whiskey Galore rally round to illegally salvage a hoard of booze from a stricken cargo ship. We see an equally savvy Scottish community in Bill Forsyth's wonderful local hero, secretly plotting to squeeze the best deal out of the American oil company that wants to buy their land.
All I need just now is you're okay to negotiate. I've got the Knox man in the hook. Just give me the time to land him in style. Now, he's got a bag full of money. So stay calm and let me handle it.
Ealing are masters at feeding our fantasies of what we'd like Britain to be, but they also have a knack for preying on our fear of who we actually are. That ambiguity is perhaps most evident in Passport to Pimlico, released in 1949. The residents of Pimlico in London discover hidden treasure and documents that free them from the rationing and restrictions of post-war Britain.
Oh, someone's been saving up for a rainy day.
That's because, as Margaret Rutherford's professor explains, they're not actually British.
This royal charter has never been repealed. It is as valid today as on the day it was signed by the founder of the House of York. Blimey, I'm a foreigner.
But after a celebratory knees up and booze up, reality quickly dawns on the community. Black marketeers and mobs of shoppers descend on Pimlico.
What's the idea holding us up like this? I got my dinner to cook.
Don't blame me, madam, if you choose to go abroad to do your shopping.
When a checkpoint and border are put up amongst the bombed-out buildings, London starts to look more like post-war Berlin, and the joke doesn't seem that funny anymore.
Now I know what Napoleon felt like before Waterloo.
The shift in tone in Passport to Pimlico is deliberate. But when you look back on the history of British comedy films, you'll find many moments that are meant to be entertaining, but which now play as anything but, where the humour reveals some distinctly unfunny prejudices. Even films like No Limit, Kind Hearts and Coronets and I'm All Right, Jack are marred by moments of casual racism.
You all heard what was said in the speech about working with coloured labour. The next thing you know, we'll have the blacks here doing our jobs like they do on the buses in Birmingham.
Thank heaven, then, for those movies which, in recent decades, have achieved popular success by acknowledging and celebrating the diversity of modern Britain.
As coordinator of the Saheli Women's Centre, I'd like to welcome you all to our first Blackpool Illuminations outing.
One of the pioneers was Gurinder Chudda's Bargee on the Beach, written by Meera Syal, which follows a group of British Asian women on a day trip from Birmingham to Blackpool.
It is not often that we women get away from the patriarchal demands made on us in our daily lives, struggling between the double yoke of racism and sexism that we bear. This is your day. Have a female fun time.
The comic hit East is East was adapted from a successful stage play by Ayub Khan Din, inspired by his experience of growing up in a mixed-race household in the 1970s.
They filmed the Dam Busters there.
Ma'am, you say that every time we come to Bradford.
Well, they bloody did. Unless you're bleeding cheek, no one asked you to answer back, lady.
You never know what bloody happens, is it? I come to this country in 1937. I here maybe 1 year, and I make a bloody film.
Were you the star, Dad?
Shut it. No bloody star, stupid. I was shouting in a bloody crowd. I kill bloody English.
As with Bargee on the Beach, the comedy sits alongside serious subjects like arranged marriage and domestic abuse. And sometimes it seems that British Asian characters have a lot of issues to carry. But look at Danny Boyle's Yesterday, a fantasy about a world in which it appears that only one person remembers the Beatles.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary...
Himesh Patel's protagonist and his parents, Meera Syal and Sanjeev Bhaskar, are presented as a generic British family.
Oh, it's Terry!
Oh,
hello.
Terry.
Hiya.
Hey.
Hey. Jack's just playing us a new song.
Oh, really? I thought he'd given up. Yeah, no, well, he's got some new songs. What's this one called?
Leave It Be.
Let It Be. Oh, excellent. Well, rock on, Jack.
Oh, it's not very rocky, but... When I find myself in times of trouble...
Would you like a drink, Terry?
Dad.
Well, I'd already heard that bit.
This is a mainstream romantic comedy with a British Asian hero in which race appears to have been as forgotten as the Fab Four's back catalogue. Can comedy capture the richness of multicultural Britain without falling into stereotyping? Well, the only way to find out is to encourage more diversity within the British film industry itself, to ensure that our stories are not simply told by the same voices over and over again.
Kind time! Lead on! Lead on!
Let's return to where we started and the personal history of David Copperfield, directed by Armando Iannucci, a Glaswegian of Italian immigrant descent.
This is a remarkable day.
It's a delight to see you so liberated.
I'm struck by how Dev Patel conveys some of the sublime pathos of Chaplin, the first great British comedy star.
Let's get you back to Whitfield's house. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you.
And whether it's Patel or the supporting ensemble, the film features fabulously inclusive casting which fulfills each role according to talent and suitability. And it absolutely works. The diversity of the cast captures the kaleidoscopic energy of Dickens's writing like no other adaptation before it. David Copperfield takes us back to the foundations of comedy cinema while pointing toward an exciting future, which is as good a reason as any to crack open that crate of whiskey, don't worry, I won't ask where you found it, and raise a glass to the best of British comedy.
Chin chin. To Bridget.
Champagne.
What is it, bitter?
Pleased to meet you, Mr.
Well, perhaps just a quick one.